guys, we've got a fun review today because we're talking about the upcoming Hellraiser that's coming to Hulu this week. It's been an insanely good year for horror films. There have been so many great ones that have come out this year, and we still have a couple months left to go. So you can imagine that I was highly anticipating the new Hellraiser film, since not only is Clive Barker involved with the development of this new Hellraiser, but it is coming to us from director David Bruckner, who I think is phenomenal. I think he is kind of underrated, bringing us hits like The Night House or The Ritual on Netflix. Not gonna lie, it is kind of unfortunate that this film is going to Hulu or Disney Plus, depending on where you're located, because I would love to see these films in a big packed theater, much like with Prey, which also went to Hulu. But I can understand why, I guess, in a sense, for Hellraiser, because unfortunately, if you've been a fan of the franchise for a very long time, many of the sequels have not been great. Like, I sat down and rewatched all the Hellraiser films for another separate video that's coming soon, and the latter portion of those sequels, they are extremely rough to get through. You can tell that they were just made to keep the rights to the franchise, not because they actually cared about the franchise at all and whatsoever. But I can gladly say, with this new interpretation that's coming to Hulu, it is amazing. It's on par, quality-wise, to those first couple great Hellraiser films, while also standing on its own as a great, unique horror film. The atmosphere for Hellraiser is impeccable. It's able to capture an insanely dark, creepy atmosphere thanks to David Bruckner's direction, and continues to get more twisted and demented as the film progresses, as it begins to mix together all of the real-world elements and the elements of the Cenobite world as they slowly are blending together over the course of the film and their impending arrival. Unlike in the original Hellraiser, where the Cenobites were not put front and center for a large chunk of the film, instead focusing on Julia going around and murdering folks, that is not the case here with this new interpretation. The Cenobites are the main stars of the show here. They are put front and center, which is great, which is exactly what you want in a Hellraiser film. Right from the very start of the film, they are billed as the big overarching threat on the horizon that the story is building up towards till they do appear on screen. Along with that, the film also establishes a lot of new lore for the Cenobites in general, which is kind of refreshing to get that new info. We also find out a lot more history on the Lament configuration, and I think that does enhance the story being told here, since the box has a much bigger purpose to the story here compared to a lot of the previous films. I will say the film does start out pretty slow, almost intentionally pretty slow, so don't go into this expecting carnage on display right away. It does take its time to get to that stuff, but I do think the wait to get to that carnage is well worth it. It is pretty gruesome. The gore on display is exactly what you've come to expect from a Hellraiser film. Brutal skin peeling, bones breaking, seeing people's organs, and it was pretty gross. I mean, I'm not gonna act like it wasn't, but I think part of what made it so much more gross looking is the practical effects being used here. I'm sure there was some level of CGI being used in some shape or form, but a lot of it looked pretty practical. It was pretty visceral. On top of that, the new designs for all these different Cenobites were pretty horrifying. They were great, but horrifying to look at. It's a great mix of familiar Cenobite designs like the Chatterer or Pinhead, along with some new Cenobite designs. That's one of the things I do look forward to going into every new Hellraiser, what kind of creepy, weird Cenobites we can create here, and the ones that are display in this new Hellraiser, they're pretty nasty. The most creative looking out of all the different ones, though, was Pinhead. I think Pinhead's new design looks phenomenal on the screen. And speaking of Jamie Clayton, I know there's going to be a whole lot of people that are going to discredit this film just because Jamie Clayton is in the role of Hell Priest or Pinhead, which I think is ridiculous. I think Jamie Clayton is a phenomenal actress, and her stepping into this big role with such huge shoes to fill, I think she did a great job. I felt she was able to bring something fresh and different to this horror icon, and I loved her haunting new interpretation of the character. It does still feel very much like Pinhead, but she is putting her own unique stamp on the character. Each and every scene that she's in the film, she is terrifying. Between the design itself, the performance, or the extremely creepy voice modulation they did on the character, I think that she did the role justice, and if they do end up doing a sequel to this where she portrays the character once again, I'm all for it. Even outside of the general carnage and mayhem that involves the Cenobites, the story itself, I think it is a pretty engaging, good story. The actors and actresses themselves, I think they're all solid. There aren't any that are terrible or any means, but there aren't any that are like huge standouts either. They're all very serviceable to the roles that they're given, especially the female lead in the film, Odessa Azion, who plays Riley, because the story itself explores some pretty dark material, since we are following someone that is grappling with drug addiction, but it's done in a respectable way here, as it is integral to her being influenced by the box until it reaches a certain threshold and unleashes the Cenobites. The way that this film is structured, I feel like whether you are a big fan of the Hellraiser franchise or not, you can still enjoy this a whole lot. If you're a big fan of the franchise, it has enough here that pays respect to the original, where you're going to appreciate it a little bit more. And I feel like David Bruckner brought a whole lot of his own style and vision to this interpretation of Hellraiser, where it doesn't feel like a shot-for-shot kind of remake. It's very much a David Bruckner Hellraiser film in that right. Yeah, all around, this new Hellraiser film on Hulu is a huge home run in my book. It gave me everything that I wanted in a new Hellraiser installment. It's creepy, it's fun, and it's everything that you want around the Halloween season. I don't know if it's going to be the best horror film of this season, but the only kind of gripe I had is that I can't watch this in a packed theater with a bunch of other horror fans, because it's on Hulu or Disney Plus, depending on where you're located, which is a huge bummer. I think this would have done really well in theaters if it was marketed the right way. But anyway, the film comes out on Hulu this week, so make sure you share your thoughts down below once you get a chance to check out the film. Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? Would you like to see a sequel to this in some shape or form with Jamie Clayton and David Bruckner and all them returning? Because I definitely do. And if they do return, I hope we get a theatrical release, because that is the big thing that I do want. Because I want this film to succeed and Hellraiser gets its time in the sunlight once again as a great horror franchise, because it's been a very, very long time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for the review. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel so I always update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Next time, we'll see you guys later.